Thank you, Keith. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And bear in mind that that's our former police chief that you heard taking that position. By the way, John. And so, it's great to be here today. It's a really exciting time, and I'm very optimistic about Prop 19 passing right now. Let me start off by saying what the state of California law is to give you a grasp of where things stand right now. Basically, marijuana is illegal in California. There is a qualified, limited immunity that people have if they get a doctor's approval, and that is an immunity that allows them, theoretically, to have 8 ounces or 6 plants and be immune from arrest if they have the right paperwork. Otherwise, they're in court fighting it out. And a lot of times the problem is the paperwork. The cop doesn't like the doctor, doesn't believe it's done in time and so forth. Whatever their issues are that they have against the paperwork becomes a big factor in this whole thing. But Prop 215 created the limited qualified immunity. SB 420 created an opportunity for collectives to grow, and it also set up the safe harbor for use. But basically, it created a legal defense against sales of marijuana, which right now we have this dispensary system in California, which is not based upon them saying it's legal to sell marijuana. It's to say that if you get it busted, that you have a legal defense in court for marijuana. Meanwhile, it is a felony to furnish for people below the age of 18 in California. It's a misdemeanor to possess marijuana, to transport marijuana. It is a felony to cultivate marijuana. That felony can be mitigated by a PC 1000, deferred entry of judgment, which means that if the judge is nice to you, that you might be able to get out of there without having a permanently scarred record other than having been arrested, because they can dispose of the of your cultivation bust. As was mentioned earlier here, something like 56% of Californians think marijuana should be legal. When you look at the polling, what we have right now, the average of the last 7 polls comes to 51.3% who are in favor of the initiative as written. So what this means is that our opponents are now in the position where they will say that they're not in favor of the drug war, they're not in favor of marijuana being illegal, they just think this is the wrong initiative. And then they will give you 2 reasons of why they think it is wrong or more. I mean, they have, they can make up fake stuff as much as they want, obviously. So I'm going to pass on that for a moment and get back to that in a minute, because what I want to go to next is how do we arrive at Prop 19 in the form that is written right now. The origins and concept come from the fact that there were 4 initiatives that were being crafted in California last year. One of them was the California Cannabis Initiative, which was a full legalization initiative. The other was the California Hemp and Health Initiative, Jack Harris Initiative. The other one was called the Common Sense Initiative. A couple guys in Long Beach who just said it's time to do something, and they didn't know, they didn't have a group, they didn't have anything, they just wrote something that said it's common sense to legalize marijuana, so therefore we should do it. Basically, it was their initiative. And then we had Proposition 19. Now, as you notice, only one of those is called Proposition. That's because of the 4, 1 made it onto the ballot. My wife, Mickey Norris, here, who's a co-publisher of the West Coast Leaf with me, she and I were engaged in the writing of 3 of those initiatives. And people said to us, so which one do you support? And what we said is we support the one that gets on the ballot. Because the other ones, they're great ideas, maybe, but they're not on the ballot. And so it seems pretty clear to me how you have to address that kind of a situation. However, not everyone felt about that way. And so I'm here to tell you that this initiative is very, 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 very carefully written. It was initiated from material that was put together by criminal lawyers. Then it went to constitutional lawyers. Then it went to election lawyers. There was a group of citizens, such as myself and Mickey, and many of the leaders of the movement were invited to participate, and they said they did not want to because they felt this was the wrong year, and if they held off for 2 years, then they would get involved, but they wouldn't get involved. Now, we took the different approach. We said, if there's something on the ballot, I want to have something to input on what it's like. And so then a lot of people are resentful to us because of, well, how come we were consulted and they weren't? And the answer is because we took the time and went to the meetings and they didn't. That's what happened there. And so those meetings were extremely interesting because this initiative was designed to do several things. One is to preserve the existing medical marijuana laws. The attorneys had told us originally, as long as you don't mention, So they said as long as we didn't mention the medical marijuana laws, that they would automatically be preserved. And as long as we didn't put them in the section that says these are the laws that are changed, it would not be changed. But we said that's not enough. We put in the purposes 3 times that it protects the medical marijuana laws in California. And in the ballot argument, it says 1 time that we're preserving those laws. So the idea that it's changing those is completely wrong. It was written to protect the medical marijuana laws and, in fact, to go beyond it, because the current medical marijuana laws do not make it clear that you can sell medical marijuana, whereas Prop 19 says you can sell marijuana if the city authorizes it. And so the question of the dispensaries will be resolved clearly that you can sell marijuana in California for medical uses after Prop 19 passes, which is not clear right now. It's still being fought out in courts. The other thing is that it says a modest goal. Rather than legalizing unlimited amounts of marijuana for anybody to use all the time in any place and share with anybody of any age, they wrote something that said it limits to 1 ounce, and you have an affirmative defense if you have more than 1 ounce, and the legislature can increase the quantity that's available, and the legislature can continue to make further changes to improve the initiative by reducing penalties and reducing restrictions, but not by going the other way, not by adding new penalties. It doesn't give them that authority. It doesn't give, and it also makes a very small personal grow legal. What that means changed during the course of our discussion. Originally it was a reasonable amount. Then it became maybe 100 square feet. Then it went down to 50 square feet. Then it went down to 32 square feet. And what we found out is that the people who don't grow marijuana think that that is a lot of marijuana. And so Richard came to the 25 square feet, and the legislature can increase that. Initially, I was very against that, but I think that with the affirmative defense, that you can defend bigger gardens, and so that's not really going to be a problem. That just means that if you can stay within 25 square feet, you don't get arrested. And the other thing is that it allows local regulations without putting in a state law that regulates the sales of marijuana. This is what our constitutional lawyers told us we had to do. They said if we made a law that California had to break federal law, that would be ruled unconstitutional immediately. What we can do is say that the state is stepping aside, and it's going to allow the cities to do the same kind of regulation that they do over the gas station, the barber shop, the grocery store, the drugstore, the liquor store, the tobacco outlets, the same kind of regulation. And, of course, that offended a lot of people because they felt like marijuana is not supposed to be regulated. It's supposed to be something different. But our sense of what we got to through the polls was this, that the voters were in favor of legalization, but they don't like the alcohol model because they think it's not controlled well enough. They wanted more controls over marijuana than over alcohol. And we might say, well, marijuana is safer, but that's not what the voters want to hear. They want to hear that we've written a law that produces more controls. And so those controls were put in there specifically to do a couple of things. One of them being that it would make 18 to 20 years old sales or transfers to people between the ages of 18 to 21. We kept all the criminal penalties for sales to minors below 18 and 14. Those remained intact, same as they always have been. There's no new felony in this at all. But what it did do is it made it tougher penalty for selling to people between the ages of 18 and 21. Made it equivalent to the alcohol model. And it said that we have to keep it away from kids. And it did it in kind of an ambiguous way. It said it doesn't legalize smoking around people, around minors. So it didn't make a new penalty. It didn't change the law about it. It said that it didn't specifically make it legal to do that. And so so you still have your misdemeanor, furnishing charge, but and for the medical, it's still protected, but if you're distributing to people under the age of between 18 and 21, you might actually have the possibility of prison time. It's not a guaranteed prison time. Jail time. There is no prison time. I said that completely wrong. This is only jail. It does not create any prison time at all. And the other thing that people were concerned about, let me reiterate that, no prison time. Because I know that's going to come back and haunt me, the fact that I said the wrong word. That's the way that it works in this movement. Okay, so, and the financial argument resonates very well, although people don't really expect it to pay off the way it sounds like it will because they remember the lottery and it didn't pay off the way they thought it was going to. The drug cartel argument is extremely powerful because the fact that 60% of the drug cartels in Mexico's money, and I know the word cartel is being abused here, but I'm just going to go with the common usage. The drug cartels in Mexico get about 60% of money from selling marijuana, that if we take the California market away from them, that's going to reduce their ability to slaughter people in Mexico. And to do that kind of criminality that's going on down there. And people are really concerned about that. The other two things that are really important to California is that they don't want people driving under the influence, and they don't want people in the workplace smoking pot. And so what we did is in initiative, it protects the employer's right to say what people can do on the job. It protects the federal drug-free workplace laws, which, by the way, we can't change federal law anyway, as you know. And then it also makes sure that the driving under the influence laws are intact. So it preserves those because, again, you can argue that people may drive safer on marijuana than other things, but voters don't want to hear that. They want to hear that people are not going to be driving under the influence of marijuana any more than they used to. So that's where the way the law is written, based upon polls. What we were looking for is the middle ground, in other words. And so we're getting hit from both ends. And so let's talk about that for the next moment here, which is that got the backlash we were expecting from the right wing, which is that they say, well, this is creating a crazy situation and so forth. And marijuana is this great danger, and people begin driving under the influence, and people are going to be smoking at work. And we had dealt with all that within the initiative itself. So most of their claims don't have a lot of traction if you actually read the initiative, only if you don't read the initiative. Now, what we were not necessarily expecting was that Dennis Perrone and another group, a woman called Dragon Fart or something like that, is out there making up false stories about the initiative and spreading it around. We were not really counting on that because we were hoping for this, what we call, we're doing 51.3% with the, what they call the likely voters. But we want the unlikely voters out there too, the young people who aren't expected to vote. And we think it's going to be important for the Democrats and for the progressive agenda in general to have this happen as well. And so, anyway, so just to basically say it, there are no new felonies. It doesn't do basically anything that they say. And so in the new issue of the West Coast Leaf, we did an investigation of the claims that were made by those people. You can't go on forever though, because they can make up conspiracy stories like you wouldn't believe. And you can spend your whole life trying to dispute their conspiracy theories. But we looked at the things, as they said, were likely, and we found out that basically, it was all wrong what they had to say. So then, the historical context is that this has been, that this is 38 years since California had legalizing non-medical marijuana on the ballot. Coincidentally or inextricably, it's the same ballot number, Proposition 19. And right now, the big funders have not come through with the money for it, so we need to count upon people, like John said for here. If you could take 1 month's supply of money that you spend on marijuana and give a third of it to NORML, a third of it to Prop 19, and a third to Prop 74, that would be an extremely good use of your money. And in addition to that, I would say that you have the information here to donate to the campaign, and also the West Coast Leaf gives you a full rundown on how these things look and all these arguments. And I think that Prop 215 is the best thing that happened to California since I've been alive. And if Prop 19 passes, it is going to far, far surpass anything that Proposition 215 did. And so we need every one of you out there telling people in California, register, vote, get people to vote absentee, get them out to vote, but we have to have them, and we will need to win on November the 2nd. So please, thank you for your time, and get everybody out on behalf of legalizing marijuana. It makes it lawful, not just a legal defense. This law says it is lawful for people to possess, cultivate, and use marijuana. And that is the difference, because that's the beginning of the end of discrimination, which is all based upon it being illegal. Thank you very much.